Well, if you thought the cliffhanger that Poison Ivy was about to show up that last week's episode ended on meant anything at all, don't you feel stupid now? Not only did the writers drop that plot thread like a bad habit, but it's almost as if they realized that they'd been slacking off these last couple weeks, with the previous 2 episodes being a tiny, microscopic bit less agonizing than usual, and decided to make up for it by doubling and tripling down this week because, oh my god! This episode was so stupid, I'm not sure I can even process it. I was hitting pause on the DVR every 30 seconds just so my brain wouldn't short circuit, and it still might not have been enough. Just hit the intro and let's get this horror show in my rear view as quickly as possible. The episode begins with a white guy, who of course is evil, doing God knows what with a frozen human being. This person was frozen with the freeze tech from last week, I guess. He's trying to thaw them out with heat lamps, tells them to get up even though a blind person could see that they're still frozen. The person stands up, and their frozen legs just break off. Kinda like the T-1000 if Terminator 2 was really, really stupid and had no budget. So evil white guy has been trying this with a bunch of candidates or something, still can't figure out whatever he's trying to figure out, and spoiler, Mary's going to figure it out for him. We're not even 2 minutes in. Cut to Mary waking up in what is clearly the middle of a forest, but is somehow also Gotham Park. Those plant vines that dragged her into the bushes last week recede and go away without doing a goddamn thing. Mary pulls a big thorn out of her arm, and that's the end of that. The episode then moves on to something completely unrelated. It's almost as if the writer of this episode resented the writer of the previous episode for having the audacity to expect them to follow continuity and was actively telling them to f*** off. Just for context here, this was about on the same level as an episode of Riverdale ending with Archie dying after getting mauled by a bear, and the very next episode beginning with him being alive, out of the hospital, completely recovered from said mauling, and walking back into town on foot without a care in the world. Batwoman's continuity has reached the same godless depths as Riverdale's, just in case you were wondering if they could possibly still sink any lower. For the record, they can. Over at the apartment, Ryan's got an emergency on her hands. And that emergency is that she is just so damn awesome that her awesomeness could not be kept a secret anymore, and now the entire city knows just how awesome she is. I'm not even being sarcastic. Ryan's brand new brother Marcus got Ryan on some list of the top 30 under 30 or something, which makes Ryan some instant media sensation, and now she has to meet with the press and shit. Luke points out all the reasons why this is bad news, like she'll have to be seen publicly with the brother her brand new mommy told her to stay away from or else, and they haven't said exactly how that could f*** over their Batwoman operations, but apparently it's a very real threat. Everyone is just assuming that Jada Jet will drop the Sword of Damocles on them. I don't know why, they have no reason to think that yet. But nevertheless, this does put Ryan in a bind. Plus, the company has just been inundated with requests to interview Wayne Enterprises' hot young CEO, and if she doesn't do an interview, reporters will be climbing the walls to talk to her. Ryan's getting a kick out of the hot young CEO thing, even though this is terrible, because any self-respecting interviewer who is A, sane, and or B, competent, is just gonna ask Ryan a million questions that she can't answer. Starting with, how in the blue f*** did a bartender who did hard time for drug possession become the Wayne Enterprises CEO? So as you can imagine, this is a huge problem. Not that they'll be treating it like one, but Sophie will be there, because lesbians, and also Sophie's annoying sister will be there doing interviews, because community center. That's literally all the explanation it gets. Then Mary walks in, and instead of immediately saying that she was abducted by plant vines that seem to have a mind of their own and was unconscious for a whole night that she can't account for, she decides to keep this news to herself and say absolutely nothing. And just wait until she plays the victim card about that later. Just wait for it. Luke quickly excuses himself because he's mad at Mary for being a jackass. Join the fucking club, bro. And Ryan's too busy to listen to Mary either. Now, would they stay and listen to her if she just said the words, "I was abducted by plants last night"? Yes, they would. And that's why she doesn't tell them. Because the only way Mary's victim narrative is going to fly is if she acts like the biggest twat on God's green earth. Over at Arkham, Alice is still feeling the nanobots under her skin. Some orderly comes in with a stack of mail from Daddy. Alice assumes the mail is just her mind playing tricks on her again, and when the orderly isn't sympathetic enough, she snaps his neck. But the other orderly outside the door doesn't see anything wrong. Alice is just hallucinating again, so she tells the other guy that she wants to talk to Montoya, presumably to discuss that conditional release that only seems to be a thing when the story needs it to be. Cut to the press junket, because press junkets are something Ryan does now. Totally appropriate for a character who utilizes stealth and secrecy when fighting crime in the shadows, right? Man, the writers are really putting the pedal to the metal on turning Ryan into Bruce Wayne, aren't they? I mean, I'm not surprised. They did the exact same thing in Supergirl Season 1. They didn't give Kara her own identity, they gave her Clark's identity. Now they're doing the same thing with Ryan. At least in Season 2, she was her own person. Now she's just Bruce Wayne with tits. She's using Bruce's stuff, working in Bruce's office, she's got Bruce's day job. The only difference seems to be that she's doing Bruce's day job better than Bruce did. First thing Ryan mentions is that Wayne Enterprises is set to make their biggest quarterly revenue gains in 6 years. And somehow, despite the fact that Ryan's only been the acting CEO for a matter of weeks at most, despite the fact that this time last year she was a homeless person living in a van, despite the fact that Ryan almost certainly didn't go to college and has no idea how to run a business, Wayne's incredible newfound success is all because of her. And believe it or not, we haven't even gotten to the really stupid bits yet. Marcus is there, and he encourages Ryan to smile, because that's a thing that men do, am I right? So she poses for a million pictures, she's prickly with Marcus. He thought he was doing her a big favor by being seen with her at a press event after Jada warned Ryan to stay away from Marcus. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Ryan thinks Marcus just did this to piss his mom off, and is irritated because this is putting her business at risk. That's what she calls it. Wayne Enterprises is her business. And if you're infuriated right now, I don't blame you, but pace yourself. We are nowhere near the bottom yet. Cut to Sophie and that jackass character they call her sister, who we did not see the last of in Season 2 after all. Huzzah. The sister gets to make a speech at some point, I'm not sure why, and is planning to make this event all about herself by begging for community center donations, even though two of the women behind the community center are a multi-billionaire and the acting CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world. You'd think that place would have all the money it could possibly ever need, but no, they need donations. For some reason. So because we haven't talked about lesbians for a minute, Sophie mentions that she needs a girlfriend, even though it was clearly stated in the season premiere just a couple episodes ago that Sophie was dating multiple women at the same time. It's amazing how quickly that stopped being a thing when they didn't have any sexy montages to shoot, isn't it? So the sister is like, hey, that Ryan Wilder is super amazing and badass, and you're super amazing and badass, so you two should be super amazing and badass together. And Sophie seems to be thinking the same thing as her and Ryan give each other fuck me eyes from across the room. Then Sophie awkwardly takes off, because that was all the dialogue she had in this scene. But suddenly, the evil white guy shows up, knocks the sister unconscious in full view of dozens, if not hundreds of people, abducts her in the middle of a giant room full of journalists, photographers, and Associated Press, and somehow, some way, not a single goddamn person notices this. We've reached the stage where even making jokes about this shit feels pointless. I'm beyond jokes right now. It's not just that the writers aren't trying. It's worse than that. It's that they genuinely just don't give a shit and don't even care who knows it. This show is nothing but a paycheck to every single person in that writer's room, because if there was even one person in there who gave a rat's ass about what they do as a professional television writer, stuff like this would never happen. It wouldn't even make it to script. They'd be breaking the episode scene by scene. Someone would point out that, hey, that's some grade A bullshit right there. We need to do better than this. But no one does. Because they don't care. None of them care at all. Every week, the show reads like they just scribbled out a first draft over their lunch break and tossed it to someone else to film the damn thing. So why should the viewers care about this show when the writers don't? Jesus Christ. Cut to Jada scowling at pictures of Ryan and Marcus together. Then she calls Vesper Fairchild with a hot scoop that it seems she already had prepared for just such an occasion. Then we go to the illegal underground abortion clinic, which Mary is still running all by herself, even though I thought the point of that storyline from Season 2 was that she was going to have a staff now. Big surprise, they forgot all about that. Alice is there hanging out. Apparently Montoya just dropped her in Mary's lap and off. Great idea, since Alice came this close to slashing someone's throat the last time you did this, and I guess Ryan doesn't have to be there to babysit Alice after all. It can just be anybody, as long as it's not interrupting Montoya's nap. Montoya is approaching levels of incompetence that rival Sophie's, and she's been around less than 4 episodes. Do you have any idea how much work it takes to shit the bed that badly? Good God, at this rate, another episode or 2 and Montoya won't have any bowels left. So Alice is just f***ing around because she's bored. She's got nothing else to do, so she wants to track some bad guys. But Mary's like, Team Batwoman's got a thing to do, we'll fight bad guys tomorrow. But that simply won't do, so Alice goads Mary into calling Montoya, a call that will not be followed up on, by the way, which she does in private, leaving Alice unsupervised again. The last time Mary did this, in the previous episode no less, Alice easily got a hold of a weapon and almost murdered someone. Back at the press junket, publicist guy is, you guessed it, kissing Ryan's ass. She's so awesome at this, he can't believe she's never had media training. Then Marcus tries to make chit-chat again, but Sophie shows up, and they do that scene the producers thought was so incredibly compelling that they had to put it in the promo for this episode instead of anything Batwoman related. Not shockingly, it wasn't. They introduce themselves, and then it's, oh no, Sophie's jackass sister is missing, let's go deal with that now. We go back to the cave where Luke is working on the Batwing suit again, and he knows what he has to do to turn the AI back on, but he doesn't do it because if he did, then the scene can't happen. So the AI is turned off, but he starts bitching at it like it's a person. He's bent out of shape that the suit almost got him killed a bunch of times, and yeah, that's fair, but the suit's been working just fine since he fixed it, so what's the fucking problem? Ryan calls in, wanting Luke to do all the detective work for her again. He starts looking for the sister, then Marcus shows up, just magically knowing that the sister was spotted in the hotel upstairs. Then they find the sister in a hotel room frozen into a popsicle just like that person in the cold open, and it looks so laughably fake, you'd think this was a sitcom. Ryan recognizes the stuff that did this as Mr. Freeze's tech, which evil white guy has been tinkering with, and all of a sudden, freeze serum is a thing now. In the last episode, it was just regular old liquid nitrogen, and the canister was what made it so dangerous, but now it's some kind of super special freeze juice made of science. And also, this means that there may be more of those canisters out there, which kind of invalidates the canister being secured in the Batcave in the first place, but whatever. Because Sophie's an idiot, she wonders how the bad guy did this without a cryochamber. How the bad guy froze something without a cryochamber. Sophie, this is what Mr. Freeze's technology does. You were manning the comms last week when Luke froze an entire bridge with one of these things, remember? Oh, you don't? Why am I not surprised? Sophie wants to move the sister, but Ryan says they can't do that because the last time a frozen person was thawed out, I don't know what that has to do with moving her, they started aging at 4 times the normal rate. Never mind the fact that that person had been frozen for 20 years while the sister has been frozen for an hour tops, but I'm sure that's f***ing irrelevant. But it's all pointless really, because then we cut to the illegal underground abortion clinic where they have moved the sister to anyway, so what was all that bullshit about not being able to move her? Beats me. And yeah, Sophie takes the sister to Mary's back alley abortion clinic instead of a lab with special facilities and equipment and experts, like the ones at Wayne Tech Labs, for example, who Luke said last week had been researching this freezing shit on Bruce's orders. Now, f that noise, we'll just take her to Mary. The most high-tech thing Mary has on hand is an ice pack, but Mary needed more screen time, so here we are. Mary thinks that she could thaw the sister out safely if she got a sample of the new freeze serum that was just magicked into existence this week. Meanwhile, Alice has done all the detective work herself by poking around the sister's iPhone, which was not frozen with the sister because Alice needs to look smart. And smart doesn't even begin to cover it. According to this phone, the ones who kidnapped and froze the sister are the Black Glove Society, a secret society of super wealthy people who rule the entire city from the shadows and want to live forever, who are so powerful, so dangerous, and such a massive threat they've never even been f***ing mentioned on the show until now. Maybe they're stand-ins for the Court of Owls or something, I don't f***ing know. But that seems like a pretty big important thing to just randomly prattle off on exposition from out of nowhere. And the sister was planning to unmask this secret society at the Teen Vogue press junket or whatever the f*** it was, because that makes way more sense than going to the FBI or Argus or literally anyone who could protect her with this information, right? God damn it. The sister starts thawing out, which is bad because of reasons, so Sophie takes Alice to search the sister's apartment for clues, while Ryan is back at the press junket. She's watching frozen chunks of what used to be a human body get wheeled out by police right through the party, and not a single one of the partygoers seemed to mind or even notice for that matter. Luke mentions how weird and suspicious it is that Marcus knew where to find the sister. Marcus says he knows the girl at the front desk, but gets defensive about the accusation and f***s off. Then the publicist guy points to MSNBC or something, where we can see the Wayne Enterprises stock falling faster than my will to live while I was watching this episode, and that's no small feat. Turns out Jada leaked some juicy info to the press about the Wayne CEO diverting tens of millions of dollars into secret accounts for her own use, and if Ryan takes the heat for that, she'll be getting reacquainted with all those criminals that she's spent so much time around. Remember when that was a thing? The writers sure as hell don't. So apparently this is real, and those tens of millions of dollars are how they pay for all the Batwoman stuff. And Jada just knew about this, I'm guessing because she knew Bruce was Batman, and she's just been keeping that little chestnut in her purse for a rainy day. So Ryan then goes back to the hotel room she just f***ing came from, and it's only now that she notices the huge-ass heat lamp in the middle of the room. She has Luke look for other hotspots by checking the thermal imaging cameras, which are in every room of the hotel. Just go with it. He finds something, so Ryan suits up and bursts into another room only to find a frozen puddle of human gore and a press badge that used to belong to one of the 2 clowns the sister was texting with. The frozen chunks from before belonged to the second one. Sophie and Alice are searching the sister's apartment. Alice starts hallucinating the orderly again. She finds a file on all the freezing tech that looks like the same file from last week. It's got Jetorian Industries written on it, so that's a thing. And so distracted is she by this that she doesn't notice that evil white guy and 3 thugs have entered the apartment. And then, get this, and then Alice tries to fight them. They beat her very easily. Then Sophie runs in. She tries to fight them. And they beat Sophie very easily. There, see? Just like last week, the writers are doing a thing again. These thugs are men, so they should have no chance here. According to the rules this show has established over and over and over again, by virtue of Sophie and Alice being female, they should win this fight without breaking a sweat. Now, it could be that the thugs found a loophole and were able to win the fight because Sophie sucks at everything, and that's a rule, look it up. Or, and this one's a lot less likely, but who even knows at this point, since this weird stuff has been happening for a couple episodes, episodes now, it might be possible, that the writers have realized that with their stupidities and their non-stop politicking, they'd written themselves into every corner imaginable until there was absolutely no other option except trying to make an actual TV show that might, however briefly, follow the rules of logic and common sense. Here you've got 4 male thugs versus 2 women, one of whom is a complete incompetent. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, in a hand-to-hand fight, the men are probably going to win. That's what would most likely happen in a story that's not complete bullshit. It's not what usually happens on this show, but in this case, they needed Ryan to show up and save them so her and Sophie could eye-f*** each other some more. So the women lose the fight, and it's hysterical. And then the moment is instantly ruined, because instead of just killing these bitches and being done with it, evil white guy leaves them in this cartoonishly elaborate death trap like he was taking notes from Wile E. Coyote or something. So, stop me if you've heard this one. Sophie and Alice wake up tied to chairs. What's more, there's gasoline poured all over this big row of books, which leads up to a toaster plugged into the wall that's getting ready to short out. The toaster starts sparking, it starts a fire, the fire catches the gasoline, it travels along the row of books, it's about to hit Sophie and Alice when Batwoman arrives and freezes the fire. I guess she found more of that new freeze serum somewhere. And sure, she could have just moved Sophie and Alice out of the way of the fire, or used a fire extinguisher and then given that freeze serum to Mary so Mary could use it to find a cure for the sister like she said, but God forbid 2 things actually make sense on this show, so we did it this way. So they're safe, and Ryan and Sophie eye-f*** each other again. Oh, who the hell cares? Back at the clinic, because Mary doesn't actually have any special equipment or expertise to deal with a patient like this, she's just tossing ice packs on the sister and hoping that does the trick. So yeah, taking the sister to a back alley abortion clinic staffed by 1 person to treat her for freeze juice exposure was a great idea. Luke calls for an update and they get snippy with each other. Luke's copping an attitude because Mary basically anointed herself the team doctor and has come up with nothing. He's also mad about that bullshit from last week. And Mary's copping an attitude because she spent the night in the park after getting kidnapped by plants and no one seems to care. Well, Mary, I'm just guessing here, but maybe the reason no one cares is because you never actually told any of them that happened, you unimaginable jackass! But if she did tell them, they would care, and then she couldn't play the victim card, so here we are. F*** you, writers. Then, Mary notices some plants on her desk, and suddenly she's like, hey, plants can survive the winter because of science, so the key to saving the sister is to thaw her from the inside, not the outside. Bask in my genius! Now, I have no goddamn clue how you thaw a frozen human being from the inside, and the writers don't either, so we just skip ahead to the part where the sister is thawed out, awake, and out of danger. The crux of the story the entire episode was building to, and it happens off-screen. The ratings for this episode are going to be hysterical. Yeah, so Mary single-handedly deduced what the super-powerful secret society of super-dangerous, super-wealthy people who control the whole city and who appropriated this technology in the first place couldn't figure out, because this character's entire identity is predicated on her being validated 25-8-366. Can no one hear my cries? Then Sophie tells Ryan and Mary that Alice's delusions are getting worse, and she suspects the doctors at Arkham don't care. Oh, really? Alice suspects the Arkham doctors don't care. Huh. Well, here's a question to noodle with. Why in the blue f*** did anyone ever think they would care? May I remind you dumb shits that we've all known that Arkham was run by corrupt monsters who were criminally mistreating the patients in that place since season 1. This is not new information. Team Batwoman were well aware of the problems with that place then, and they did nothing about it. Now here we are 2 seasons later, and suddenly the fact that the Arkham patients might not be getting the best mental health treatment possible comes as a fucking surprise? This show! So Mary thinks the doctors could be giving Alice the wrong meds or something that could be making her psychoses worse, which is bad news if Alice goes even crazier before they finish the job for Montoya, never mind all the other Arkham patients who might be getting mind over there, they don't mention that part. Now, the simple and logical course of action here would be to simply bring this to Montoya's attention so Montoya could conduct an investigation of Arkham and get to the bottom of all this. So instead, they decide to go with Alice's idea, which is to tell all those other victimized patients to go themselves and get Alice a supervised work release from Arkham, which is what I thought she had already, apparently not, so Mary can make sure she's getting the right meds. And since she needs somewhere to stay, Alice and Sophie are going to be roomies now. Of course, they're just pulling all this out of their asses, and there's no reason to think Montoya would sign off on any of it, but Montoya doesn't even appear in this episode, so f*** it. And while we're on the subject, what the hell are the writers doing with Montoya? Seriously, what is she even doing there? After 4 episodes, the only thing she's done is blackmail Batwoman into doing Montoya's job for her. She couldn't give less of a shit about the terms of Alice's release, which is why those terms seem to change every week. She acts as if she can't wait to just dump Alice with someone else. Doesn't even matter who as long as she's not Montoya's problem. I don't know what the point of this character is, but the writers have been treating her like garbage. Not that I'm surprised or anything, it's just... I don't know. They usually find the lesbians more interesting than this. It's weird. So we're back at the Wayne building now, and Ryan is adamant that she did nothing wrong, and the publicist just magically believes her now because she hasn't been on the job long enough to have done anything wrong, even though she's somehow been on the job long enough to have done a lot of stuff right and send Wayne Enterprises' fortunes hurtling into the stratosphere. Funny how that works, isn't it? And he also thinks that Jada is trying to make Ryan the fall guy for Bruce's misdeeds. Of course, it can't be Ryan's fault. She hasn't been on the job long enough. But it's somehow Bruce's fault, even though he hasn't been on the job in 7 years. And it's really interesting to me how no one mentions Kate in this scenario, even though Kate was seemingly running the company, I think, for about a year-ish after Bruce and before Ryan, or at the very least, she had enough power to appoint a new CEO, so logically, we should be pinning this on Kate. But remember, Kate is super gay, and gay people can't be criminals, so sure, the whole thing was Bruce's fault. That makes all the sense in the world. Anyway, they drafted an alibi, but the stock is still cratering because of this campaign to undermine shareholder confidence. Yeah, the shareholders didn't lose confidence when the CEO disappeared for years, or when an ex-felon bartender became the new CEO, but they're losing confidence now. You figure it out. And this loss of shareholder confidence puts them at risk of a hostile takeover, so the board of directors is demanding Ryan's resignation. They somehow didn't demand it the day she got the job, but they're demanding it now. God, I hate this f***ing show. Ryan's really butthurt that Jada would do this to her own daughter, so Luke has to remind Ryan that Jada's a bitch and doesn't care about that. Duh. He also says that the company was as much Lucius's as it was Bruce's, of course, and he can't lose it. And Ryan can't lose it either, so she's going to stay and fight. Whoopee. Later, back in the cave, Luke finally reactivates the Batwing suit's failsafe, so the AI starts talking again. And because Luke's an idiot, he asks the AI why it stopped talking, and the AI proceeds to tell him something he already knows, that the AI doesn't run independently of the failsafe, and it has no purpose if it's not empowered to act in your best interest. Which is horseshit, because before he turned it off, all the failsafe did was put Luke in danger by making the suit crap out at the worst possible times. Then, because the writers absolutely will not stop until they kill every single brain cell I have left, Luke says, "I'm not ready to wear the suit, am I?" And the AI says, "No, son. You're not." So all that stuff about Luke performing very well in the field once he had a suit that actually worked, getting one up on Alice, saving Ryan's life, that business on the bridge, yeah, that was all bullshit. Every single competent thing Luke has done with the suit doesn't matter. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, Luke's just not ready. Because... yeah. I knew I'd have occasion to use that one again. So Ryan talks to Marcus at the gay bar. Turns out Jada's been pulling this shit with Marcus his whole life and he's sick of it too, even though she made him her EVP. So it looks like they're going to work together against Jada. Who gives a rat's ass? And the episode ends in Jada's office, where she meets with evil white guy who works for the Black Glove Society, or the Bee Gees, as Alice calls them. You know, because that's funny. And he has the answer she's been looking for. He's adapted Mr. Freeze's technology and hands over a gizmo that can freeze and unfreeze organic matter. Mr. Freeze couldn't figure that out, I guess because he just wasn't evil and white enough. And when Jada pushes him for more info, he says that he stole the final breakthrough from a rival research team, basically meaning that he stole Mary's idea. So Mary figured out what Mr. Freeze and the evil secret society that runs the whole city could not. The only surprising thing is that it took her an entire episode to do it. And now that she has the means to put someone's life on pause permanently, Jada plans to use it on her son. Oh no, not Marcus, that great character. That's all for now. See you in the next scintillating episode where Ryan will talk to Jada. That's what the promo was about. She's going to talk to Jada. Are you on pins and needles? I know I am. This episode! God damn it! It took me like 2.5 hours to get through this thing. It was pissing me off so much. Every single plot point depended on these idiots being so stupid they're basically cartoon characters. The villain is conducting these freezing experiments and committing multiple murders in a hotel that has security cameras in every room. Not that that matters, because whoever's running security and watching these cameras somehow didn't see a thing. The dumbass even leaves all the evidence right there in the room and still doesn't get caught. Then, when he has Sophie and Alice unconscious and could easily kill them just by snapping their necks or shooting them in the head, he instead gives them a chance to escape by putting them in this goofy-ass death trap and then f***ing off without even making sure the trap worked. Why? Because if he did the competent thing and just killed them, then Batwoman couldn't save the day. So the only way the hero can win is if the villain is a complete f***ing moron! The bait and switch with Poison Ivy amounted to exactly nothing. Mary was being such a jackass I wanted to punch her in the face every second she was on screen. Multiple characters had to forget huge things we know they already knew just to advance the plot. The stuff about Luke not being ready to wear the Batwing suit was complete bullshit because literally the only times he's ever screwed up while wearing it was due to the suit crapping out on him. This huge secret society that somehow runs the whole city just appears right the f*** out of nowhere. The storytelling was an embarrassment. The characters were a joke. Not only was this the worst episode of season 3 so far, this might have been one of the worst episodes of the show, period. And that is saying so much, it's downright frightening. God help us all! Jesus Christ, that was tough to get through. Now I gotta go watch The Eternals, and the buzz about that one is not promising. But it's gotta be better than this was. That's 4 episodes down. After this one, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, but we'll make do somehow, I guess. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments. Ding the bell icon and follow my social media to always be notified when I upload new stuff. Links to all that and to my live streaming channel are down below. Thumbs up the video, share, subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, and I'll be back with more soon. So stay tuned for that, do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.